What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Another still worth it video today, and this time continuing on with the iPhone trend. We're going to be talking about none other than the iPhone 8 Plus. Now this is a very interesting phone because as we know, like when the 7 Plus, 6 Plus, 6S Plus, when those phones came out, those were pretty much the flagships of the time. Those were the most expensive iPhones. You can get the whole entire Plus series, but when the 8 Plus was released, we saw that the iPhone 10 kind of overtook that major flagship price. So the 8 Plus kind of became the mid-tier phone 1 year later, which is crazy. You know, how we can go from having the most premium phone being, you know, the price tag that it was to it being the mid-tier phone. And in a lot of ways that was a cool thing, but that was also a little bit of a bad thing too for the iPhone 8 Plus specifically, because as we've seen, you know, through time, especially in 2020 now at the end of 2019, nobody really talks about the iPhone 8 Plus. More people talk about the iPhone 10, and rightfully so. The 8 Plus, you know, it's kind of an older design phone even though it's the same age as the iPhone 10, but it's a lot of overlooking, and I feel like the 8 Plus was a very underappreciated at the time, which I made a whole separate video talking about. And I think that has a lot to do with the design. But when this thing was released in 2017, we already started seeing a lot of phone manufacturers, including LG, Samsung, even OnePlus, starting to take a lot of bezel away from their phones. And Apple technically did it with the 10 series, but they kept it on the iPhone 8 Plus. And on the front, you do have a 5.5 inch IPS panel. That one is 1080p, and that's actually not that bad, even compared to what we have nowadays. I've been comparing all these phones to the newest iPhones, and iPhone 8 Plus included. I compared it to the iPhone 11's display, and I think the 8 Plus kind of rivals it. I do think that one is probably the better display between the two. You have True Tone on the iPhone 8 Plus, which is a really cool thing, and that really kind of future-proofed the iPhone 8 Plus for sure. And that panel, 1080p, isn't bad. If this thing had an OLED panel, I feel like way more people would still appreciate it, but it's not a bad panel, and I think everyone does kind of understand that is not a horrible panel. It's just not an OLED, and it has a lot of a bezel around it. I think at the end of the day, that's the number one complaint about this phone. It's not the performance, it's not the cameras or anything, it's just the way it looks, you know, which, like I've stated before, looks can be deceiving. If you guys looked at me, you would see just, you know, some ugly person who can't really do anything, but I kind of do something sometimes, you know. So the iPhone 8 Plus, I think, is like me in a way. On the bottom, you can see a home button, which is cool. I like that a lot. However, the screens are tied to the home button, so replacing the LCD screen itself, not just the glass, the whole entire LCD, will make that home button useless, which is something to kind of note when you're talking about the future of this device. On the bottom, a lightning port, no headphone jack or anything like that. On the back, you have a dual camera setup, which is really cool, a glass back with wireless charging, so that's awesome. And talking about really just the design, I mean, like I said, that's really the main problem, is just the way it looks. Other than that, completely functional. A super cool thing is that it does have IP67 dust and water resistance, so you can go up to 1 meter of water for 30 minutes, which is an awesome thing. Having some type of IP certification on a phone is crucial nowadays, and pretty much all phones coming out have some type of certification. So this phone in that sense is really cool, and I do like that a lot. One thing I will note though, especially now we're in 2020, the iPhone SE 2 should be coming out sometime in the next couple months, if it's already not out by the time you're watching this. And because of that, a lot of people are saying, you know, it's supposed to take the iPhone 8 body, which it probably will. So should they wait for the iPhone SE 2 or not, or whatever? I would probably tell you to wait. But a lot of people are asking me, is the iPhone 8 Plus still going to be sold brand new in the Apple stores? And I truly believe so. I think the SE 2 will probably overtake the iPhone 8, but the iPhone 8 Plus will still probably be sold in the Apple stores. If you're watching this a couple months down the line, you already know the answers, so that's kind of one thing I wanted to note there, and that pretty much covers it up in terms of the outside. Now hitting on the software super quickly, this thing was released with iOS 11, the infamous iOS 11 update. We are able to get iOS 13.3 and all those other versions of iOS that are going to come out for a while, so this thing should technically match the same software versions as the iPhone 10, but I do think the iPhone 10 is going to get an extra year of support, so technically the iPhone 8 Plus might get a couple more years or 1 extra year of support on top of that. But even if it doesn't, the iPhone 8 Plus is still going to be lasting for a long time. I would not even worry about it. So in terms of software, you're going to be set. However, a really cool thing that the iPhone 8 Plus has that isn't necessarily a software thing more so than it is a hardware thing, but a jailbreak came out, the checkra1n jailbreak, which is an unpatchable jailbreak. Apple cannot push a software update technically to patch this thing unless they go and fix every single 8 Plus that comes out. And what this jailbreak allows you to do is that it allows you to jailbreak on any iOS version, whether you're on iOS 11 or iOS 13, or in the future if you're on iOS 14 or 15 or 16, whatever version of software the iPhone 8 Plus ends at, you're able to jailbreak your device device, which is very, very cool and very important. You're able to get a lot more features on a phone that is jailbroken than a stock, even iPhone 11 Pro Max. So there's a lot of cool things you can do to breathe more life into an iPhone 8 Plus. If you feel like it's aging or something, you have that ability to jailbreak it, which I've already dropped a tutorial on if you want to watch that later. But that is something that not a lot of phones, that is something that the newest iPhones don't have. There's no jailbreaks out for those ones yet that are public. Maybe if you're watching this down the line, maybe there is, but currently there is not. And the iPhone 8 Plus has that ability, which is a really cool thing. So whether you want to do it or not, you have that capability on the iPhone 8 Plus where you don't necessarily have that on the newest and latest iPhones. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of a software standpoint. Now hitting on the performance side of things, this thing was released with the Apple A11 Bionic chip, hexa-core CPU, and there were two different models of the iPhone 8 Plus, a 64 and 256 gigabyte variant. Both those variants had 3 gigabytes of RAM, and I can tell you, man, like I've stated before, if you haven't seen any of my other comparisons that I've already done or anything, this phone is still a very fast and capable phone. It's super fast. Anything I do with it, it's like very capable. Slow apps, small apps are very, very fine. I don't really see myself running into too many problems. Bigger apps as well, those are perfectly fine as well. I will say I've been comparing the iPhone 8 Plus to a lot of newer iPhones, including the 11 Pro Max, 11 Pro, and 11, and I do think at the end of the day those phones are faster, which they should be. I'm not surprised at that at all. I'm not ashamed to admit it. The newer iPhones are definitely faster than the iPhone 8 Plus, but as of right now, there is a huge issue with these newest iPhones, which is the RAM management side. Those new iPhones have 1 gigabyte more of RAM than the iPhone 8 Plus. However, in my testing that I've done, you will see, and hopefully I put some video on the screen that shows this, the iPhone 11s and the 11 Pro included have some weird RAM management issue that when I started doing my full-on speed test, you will see that for some reason the iPhone 8 Plus is able to beat the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 11 Pro and all those speed tests that I did in terms of the RAM management opening speeds. There were some times where the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 8 Plus would stop at the same app, but for the first several apps, for some reason the iPhone 11 would close them, where the iPhone 8 Plus was still able to keep them open, which is a very scary thing. You're paying more money for a phone that has a less, RAM management power, and it has more RAM. How does that even make any sense? So the iPhone 8 Plus in that sense is very capable. It has very consistent performances across the board. It's not like you're getting something where you don't expect it or you're going to have a massive performance failure like the iPhone 11 right now. At the end of the day, the iPhone 8 Plus is a very consistent phone. I've had nothing, no issues really. The only issues I have is hardware with the glass cracking on the back. Other than that, this phone is completely capable in terms of performance and it sometimes even beats the iPhone 11 and the 11 Pro when it comes down to RAM management. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of performance standpoint. Now hitting on the cameras, this thing has two 12 megapixel sensors on the back, a wide angle lens and a telephoto lens, which is really awesome, a 7 megapixel camera on the front. Now what I will tell you is that this camera is able to shoot 4K at up to 60 frames on that back camera and 1080p at up to 240 frames, which is really cool. And one thing and one consistent thing, I love saying consistent now, issue that I've seen with all these older phones that I've been reviewing, even like the 2017, 2016 phones, is that a lot of them only have a single camera setup. That seems to be the biggest issues with these older phones because now we have phones that have like 15 cameras on them. So even if the quality is amazing, you're still lacking some of those features that the newest phones have, even if the quality is on par. So phones like the Galaxy S8 that came out the same year as this phone have a single camera setup, but the iPhone 8 Plus at least has an extra telephoto lens, which does allow you to do things like portrait mode and things like that. So that is a really cool thing, and I'm really happy this phone has two camera setups. If it had a single one, it would be a little bit worse, but this one has at least two, which is a really, really good thing. And that is a hardware thing. It's not like a software update can go and fix that. So I'm glad Apple put a secondary lens on this. The quality of the photos, the quality of the videos, everything is very, very good still. Like I said, 4K at 60 frames, Google Pixel 4 is still not even able to do that yet. The front camera though is where you'll see some different things. Like I said, 1080p at the front camera. The iPhone 11 is able to shoot 4K on the front camera, so that's really, really a huge upgrade going to that phone. But I think you're going to be perfectly fine for the average user. I don't think you're shooting 4K all the time, so the camera quality on this thing is still very, very good looking in the future of 2020. Now ending it off with the battery life, this thing had a 2,691 mAh battery. Like I said, it has wireless charging, and I do think the battery life is probably the most average thing about this phone. There's really nothing that screams to me like it's not at the best battery life of an iPhone, but it's not the worst either. For the Plus series, I was actually expecting it to be a little bit better. Standby time is okay, But at the end of the day, it's a 2,691 milliamp hour battery. It's not a massively crazy like 4,500 milliamp hour battery that we have now, or close to 4,000 like the 11 Pro Max has. But I think it's good enough. I think it'll get you from point A to point B, and I think you'll probably go through a whole day without running it dry, like depending on your performance and everything. But on my usage, I would probably have to charge it by the end of the day. And because this thing is not new anymore, the battery has probably degraded. But the cool thing is that iPhones tend to not degrade the battery that fast as compared to Androids. My iPhone 8 Plus's battery health is still over 90%, which is pretty decent. But it's also kind of weird because I don't even use it that much, so I don't really understand what's going on there. But at the end of the day, the battery life is not a bad thing. It's not a great thing. I would say it's goodish, kind of. So to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, is the iPhone 8 Plus still worth it in 2020? I will say yes, 100%. It's still completely worth it. It has so much going for it. The display is really good. The camera sensors are awesome. The performance is actually very, very good for this phone and sometimes even beats the 11 in terms of RAM management. This thing has wireless charging, IP certification, and it still has software support for a pretty long time. So there's really not too much to hate on this phone. Really the only downside is the way it looks. Like I said, some people might not like it. Some people might prefer it, but some people might not like it. If you don't like it, you can always get a used iPhone 10 or something like that. That's always another way to go. It's pretty much just a better looking version of the 8 Plus, the same exact specs are inside for the most part. So if you want to get the cheapest iPhone 8 Plus, probably eBay is the best way to go. You can get it for used from there for pretty cheap. But I will find the cheapest iPhone 8 Pluses on Amazon and link them straight down in the description below so you guys can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.